it kind of juiced up the tech up speed. And you know what? It's time to get underway. Beasty taking the deli in VortiX. It's a mystery. I can't tell you, because if I tell you, you're going to cringe. It's a deli mirror matchup. We'll see how the generation comes out, because one thing we've got to keep in mind is Dry Arabia can be a little bit feisty with those sacred sites. And opening up, it's fairly even, but I might actually give a slight edge in terms of position to VortiX here. It feels like the sacred sites are slightly pulled towards him.
Yeah, especially that one on the east. I think that's going to be a little bit tricky for Beasty to contest, but it's still relatively even.
I'm trying to see if there's any big other edge around this. I mean, looking at their generations, one thing to keep in mind is the deer are fairly balanced, but the gold is maybe a little bit more exposed for VortiX. Like, he got it next to his wood line, but it is forward of his base. So if we see any sort of early raid potential, a little bit poking here or there, you could get shot at gold maybe a little bit easier compared to Beasty that has one kind of off to the side, although further out from the safety of his TC.
Hmm. Both players are going to be opening up with pretty standard build orders here, nothing out of the ordinary.
It's almost like you got your deli with a mirror matchup, right?
Yeah.
So I think the best way to kind of open up this, because usually you aren't going to see too much deviation at this point, right? You get the static researchers going. VortiX has a slight edge there because he already went for a lumber camp compared to on the other side, Beasty didn't. One big deviation we're looking towards is the Tower of Victory versus the Dome of Faith. Now, Tower of Victory was climbing in popularity, right? Like on the last patch, it felt like that had become the new meta.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think we'll be calling it the Tower of Defeat once again with these changes to the Dome of the Faith.
I mean, there's another name kind of free, right? Like, we stopped calling it Abbey of the Memes, so now Memes is kind of there. Maybe we just call it Tower of the Memes. You gotta have one meme landmark, right? I mean, what else have we got? Kremlin is weirdly still usable. Is there actually any landmark? I can't think off the top of my head one that is absolute trash right now.
Yeah, maybe the Hisar Academy for
that's true.
The Imperial.
But I was thinking tier 1, right? Tier 1, I think we're pretty clean. There's a use for pretty much anything at the moment.
Maybe the Chamber of Commerce, possibly.
Wait, I mean, Chamber of Commerce got some of the French trash tier all together. I mean, just ask any one of these pros at the moment, but I'm seeing a Tower of Victory.
Yeah, both players going to be going for the Tower of Victory.
What? So okay, the Fury Crafton works out then. It makes sense, right? I think in almost any other matchup, Dome of Faith feels better because you just kind of race to that castle age timing. You get your tech ups in, because the cool thing is you got to remember, this Dome of Faith, the change to it, right? Not only did they buff the discount you get, because scholars are cheaper anyway, they also turned it into a mosque, right? So you go essentially double mosque that build, and you just kept pumping scholars nonstop. Problem with that here is in a Delhi mirror matchup, one opponent is just going to take to the field and get all the sacred sites, get all the gold, and beat the castle age still anyway. So as a result, neither player wants to get caught kind of being more gluttonous, shall we say, instead of realizing they need that potential to play.
Yeah, I think I do think though this it's interesting though, because I really thought the Tower of Victory was sort of on the decline with these Dome of the Faith changes, but
it's the logic
it's
you
really
can't miss out, right?
Players.
It's literally that logic. In the mirror, if you don't do it and the other person does, the game is already over, right? That's kind of the thought process. I'm trying to. There's a few ones like that I can I think the big one, kind of classico later on in the game, was always the English, right? If you got an English mirror and you went Imperial Age and someone built a Berkshire, the other player was laughing to the bank. It was like a free win.
I think VortiX is going for a second mosque here. Beasty going to be dropping down a stable immediately. Have a look over. Okay, so he's going for a barracks and a blacksmith, early blacksmith.
Bit more greedy, but it gives VortiX a slightly later timing where he should be stronger, right? His goal is now going to be to kind of turtle a little bit and then rely on the tech upgrades to come through before he takes a fight. Beasty is all about that mid-map rotation, that presence. That's the cool thing about Horsemen. It's why I always see them as an S tier unit in the feudal age, is because They can chase down scouts to deny vision, and they can always choose where they want to fight.
I wonder if we'll be seeing players adding in a second mosque to produce some scholars while they've got sanctity coming in. It seems at the moment they're just wanting to go for production and blacksmiths. So it looks like they just want to put on the aggression here.
Makes sense, right? Like, you can't afford too many scholars right now because you're not getting that discount compared to the alternative build. Also, you mentioned at Sanctity, all these tech timings. You know, if you stop to produce more of the scholars, you're not unlocking those. And I think that's going to be very important because of the extra gold that's on the table, right? Like, you know both players are going to be playing towards that objective. So don't think of it as just a plus 150 resources. Think of it as a 300 resource differential here.
So Beastyqt going to be, VortiX over here going to be going for the tri-unit composition. I think Beastyqt is doing that as well. Going to be raiding a little bit here with just the one horseman. Trying to get a little bit of middle time here on VortiX.
It's a little bit annoying, right? When you play on those berries at this point, the timing from Beastyqt is spot on, right? Typically, if a player goes straight onto the berries immediately, they've already depleted free, so you're kind of on the edge of TC harass range like this.
Yeah, VortiX does have his first spearman out, though. So he's going to be pushing that back for the time being. It looks like Beastie's moving forward with a little force there onto the first sacred site.
Now keep in mind, Beastyqt went for a delayed double blacksmith play. So he's still only one unit type, but he's going to get decent resilience against the counters coming his way. And the cool thing is, once again, because he played those horsemen, he can manipulate the battlefield. Does mean that like his kind of posturing around the sacred sites should be slightly delayed compared to Vortix's.
Yeah, we can see Beastyqt also now adding in some archers. Doesn't have a barracks down quite yet. But doesn't really need it.
How do you feel about the fact that VortiX opened with the spearman in this kind of matchup? Like, do you prefer the 2-unit comp that Beastie's kind of stuck to at the moment, or do you think there's an edge to the way that VortiX has gone for all three already?
I like the way VortiX is playing it. I think getting out all 3 units is really important, especially with the spearmen. You're able to build walls with them. You can sit on the sacred sites, stop Beastie from harassing you. So I like the fact he's gone for the early spearman.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit.
Now he's going to be capturing up.
It feels a little bit kind of old school, I want to say, on the build, right? I feel like we've seen a lot of players start to pull away from spearmen in more recent weeks. Usually the archer seems to have kind of taken its place because you can build the walls as well, right?
Yeah, though with the spearman, you're able to just sort of sit on that sacred site. I think VortiX knew that Beastie will be going for a heavy cavalry composition. So I like the spearman choice, but Beastie now going to be walling up the eastern sacred site. VortiX already has the central one captured up for himself, so he's going to have a slight edge when it comes to the gold income.
The interesting part is actually how VortiX is kind of keeping pace across the board, right? Like, he hasn't fallen behind, but you notice one key detail that's different here is Beastie has leveraged a lot more scholars. In fact, he's still actively producing them. This does mean that he'll have an ability to kind of throw away more on capture attempts compared to VortiX, who currently only has 1.
Yeah, Beastie also went for the double blacksmith. So he's gonna have those blacksmith upgrades in a lot faster than VortiX will.
Yeah, these horsemen are getting great exchanges for VortiX right now. Beastie losing a decent amount of the archers. The healing factor is helping somewhat, but the nerfs are definitely felt here. In fact, they're even now just targeting out the scholar. I think you do actually have enough horsemen left here to even get the kill and get out alive. Wow.
Yeah, great exchange there for VortiX. Must be feeling very happy about himself right there. And now he's also capturing up that western sacred site. So denying one from Beastie, capturing up another one for himself. He's looking in a great position right now.
He's controlling the narrative, right? Like, he draws attention to Beastie's claim on a sacred site, and then with this one scholar build, has yoinked 2 sacred sites, which will now fuel him to go back for his own kind of healing comp, not to mention the research upgrade. Also, VortiX is going very early on into siege engineering here. So, worried that if the walls do come in, he's strong enough right now to actually just break through and take control himself. Huh. Big throwaway there, though. That many spearmen just getting caught out in no man's land. I mean, it's a pricey kind of reclamation considering the archer mass continues to build. But with the horsemen still looming from Beasty, VortiX will probably feel the need to go back and replace those spears anyway.
Big horseman mass starting to build up now for VortiX, though. And Beasty doesn't have any spearmen of his own quite yet, so this might be a favorable fight for VortiX right here.
He has got some
Needs to target out the
upgrades,
scholars.
but keep in mind Beasty, he's teched up as well. And now the other difference is the scholars being here to heal. Those horsemen, I don't think they've achieved as much as VortiX want out of this. And the big difference maker is that when VortiX began this fight, 4, I think, maybe 5 of his horsemen were almost dead before they began.
Yeah, I think VortiX needed to keep those spearmen alive a little bit earlier on, that he sort of just threw them away. And now he's going to get pushed back off that central sacred site.
It's the tough downside to VortiX's build. Like, VortiX, I liked what he was doing until he took a direct confrontation here. Like, this is the issue he has. Until he has enough scholars, he'll never have a fully strong army, right? Like, it's deceptive. You'll see, like, 8 horsemen, but half of them are dead, right? Or basically dead. Beasty, on the other hand, because he's leveraged so many scholars ahead of time, he can afford to just camp 1 or 2 of them out in the mid-map healing and not have to worry about missing out on his tech ups at home. In fact, you can see the difference in tech ups already. VortiX took that fight with 1 military upgrade. Meanwhile, Beasty already has 3 and is on his way to his 4th.
And now VortiX has no army to even leverage siege engineering, really. It's going to be tricky for him to do any damage with that. Beasty has that eastern sacred site. Well, it's saying that there's a horseman there, but shouldn't be too difficult for him to take back. But VortiX taking a favorable fight right here with the archers.
Gotta be careful with the spears, though. Once the spears are gone, these horsemen can actually still clean you up. There's a decent amount of them. You see the focus fight. I love that to get rid of the scout, to prevent Beasty from having that vision advantage. But now, with pretty much all the spearmen gone, Beasty has to make a choice. Do I commit or do I go? The second wave coming in is going to be a commitment. This many horsemen should actually scare VortiX all the way home.
Yeah, those reinforcements coming in from VortiX so close to his base is going to help push back Beasty right there. But we can see now he's pretty much got control of 2 sacred sites. VortiX still has the one in the west, but I think Beasty's sending some units out there to capture that one up.
And Beasty's starting to be a little bit of a pain in the ass. I mean, as I said, horsemen, they are the ST unit of field, and you're seeing why, right? It's not just the way he can kind of manipulate flow in the battles, the main battles, it's now what he can do afterwards. It's something that VortiX is still kind of playing catch-up in to recover that horseman loss. But see the difference here, right? Like, there's barely any food to work with for VortiX. He's being drained dry. This is the worst possible occurrence that can come out of this, because now, just as he loses map control, he's running out of safe resources. VortiX needs to posture hard, or he's going to hemorrhage villagers on the flanks.
VortiX might be able to pick off a scholar here, though. Does manage to run away just in time. But capping that sacred site right there, definitely nice for him. He's sort of had an advantage this whole time with just having these sacred sites. Beasty's had control of 2 of them, but he hasn't had them capped for as long as he may have wanted to.
But here's an interesting thought for you. If you're Beasty, you don't necessarily need to contest this anymore. Your army is big enough to defend. You could even think about just teching up. I think he's going to keep reinvesting for the time being. Maybe just get up to, say, 12, 15 scholars max, and then you've got enough to heal. But as it stands, like, BC has options. VortiX, on the other hand, doesn't. He's kind of limited from his position. He has to keep posturing as if feudal is going to last another 5 or 8 minutes.
Beasty's stacking up a lot of food right now.
Oh, wow.
And that's a lot of villagers right there.
It's not that they're going to die, it's the desperation is now shown. Beasty now knows that this is a weak point. So Beasty had those 2 choices I talked about. Now he's going to reinvest, because he realizes if he just gets a few horsemen around the backside, VortiX's whole world comes falling down.
Yeah. But army count still looking relatively even, despite the somewhat of a bad trade VortiX took earlier on. We've got 49 for VortiX versus the 52 for Beasty.
I'm still looking at the cavalry count, though. That's my concern. Like, Beasty can peel off 4, maybe 5 of these horsemen and still take a fight due to the healing. Archer mass is even, and VortiX, the problem when you have just this many spearmen is by the time you reach the battle, by the time you force it, you're probably down to, like, 4 spears left.
Beasty also has 10 scholars in there, compared to the 4 for VortiX.
How do you feel about this round play right now?
I'm not a fan of it. I think Beasty, he's got enough of a force to hold this back with the scholars there as well, with the horsemen. I don't see those rams lasting
Speaking of
too long.
scholars, Beasty. Oh no, the formation shuffle. That's going to cost him. Now that forces the commitment, so Beasty is going to turn onto this. Horseman mass in his favor. Now the Spearmen notice that VortiX has to kind of curtail them on the backside to keep them alive. Scholars are running God knows where. I mean, this fight is chalked. I don't see a way in which VortiX comes out ahead here.
Yeah, there's no chance. The amount of scholars that Beasty has in there, we can just see that despite the nerfs for the in-combat healing, it's still enough to turn this battle for Beasty's favor.
And it's the Archer mass, right? Like, if you don't have, I think it's at least 30 of them, you can't, like, one-hit down these scholars. That's before we consider the undermesh, and we'll have to consider game number 2. Game 1 will go the way of Beasty, just coming over the top with the good old healing meta. VortiX is back to the drawing board.
Wow. It was a good start for VortiX, but ends up Beasty taking the win right there.
And we've got to dissect that Ram play a little bit, because you began to get into it before they hushed you by beginning the big game-ending fight. So let's address that a little bit, right? Like, Rams, you know, you say you weren't a big fan of it, but then we have to consider what the options are for VortiX. I think he knew how far behind he already was, and he put himself further behind when he made the commitment to siege engineering much earlier, when Beasty instead was getting an additional combat upgrade. So you kind of eventually reach this point as VortiX where it's now or never. He knows it's a bad option, but realistically, he doesn't have any better ones in his favor, considering how many kind of losses he's taken compared to Beasty in this mirror matchup.